Hello, Eduardo. Welcome. Thank you for being my first person here. Um, I'm not sure if you've been to the other streams. Sorry if you have. Sorry if I don't recognize the name. A lot of people come in and out. But if you're new here, then I do a daily stream. Oh, look at that. There's 5 people already. I do a daily stream about the news that is interesting, that I find interesting. Not necessarily the same as the news that other people find interesting. Let's take one more note. A lot of new. Oh, first one here. Cool. First time here. Great. New image. So yeah, so I do a daily stream every day, Monday through Sunday. But I thought I would. I got a comment the other day. It's like nobody has time to watch an hour of news every single day. A lot of people seem to have an hour, so I've been doing it daily. But I thought it might be neat to do like a weekly summary. So I did a whole bunch of news items. What were some of the news items that I thought were most interesting? And hello, Kay. I assume you're not the K that I know from before. I mean, there's probably lots of people who have the name K that is just the letter K. I think that was his name. Are you that K? Not, yeah. This is my weekly summary of what was the best of the news. Now, my news. My news is a little different than some of the others. You know, if you look at Matt Wolf and Matt Berman, you might think that all the news is just about the new image generators or just about the new, big models, hosted models on different hosted platforms. And yeah, those are interesting things, but I want to look more at the. I think the what's common against most of the news that I cover is really the impact on the world that AI has, and that's probably going to get more. I'm still figuring it out. Once interacted on Discord from India. Ah, okay, cool. Um, yeah, there was a different K who created a company called God, what was his hmm starts with, I think it starts with an M. It was the first acquisition that Datadog did, and originally Datadog. So I used to work for a company called Datadog, and originally the first like year of Datadog, it was just Alexi and Olivier, the two founders, sitting at a table, and they shared a table with. Oh, okay, now I remember your name. But those two guys shared a table with these other two founders of another company that did kind of a ETL pipeline company, and using Pig, is it, or something like that, and then that was the first acquisition that Datadog did, and Kay was one of the founders of that company. So they were kind of good friends from a long time. So I was thinking of that Kay, not you. But yeah, so let's take a look at what were some of the biggest news items of the week that again resonated most with me. And I'm going to open up another browser and share this one. Oh, interesting. Okay, and then how about this one? Okay, okay. Stop. Pause. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So I think this was the big news that started the week. There was a interview that Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, Former, wasn't he like important at Netscape and I think it was at Netscape, and other lots of other companies that he's been involved with over the course of a long time. And he spoke at an economics class, actually, I think the not yesterday, but a week ago yesterday, and the recording was put up by Stanford because it was at Stanford University. The recording was put up, and then it came down pretty quickly. And then there were all sorts of, uh, you take one down and 10 others popped up. And so if you do a search online, you probably find the interview, the full interview. But there was, this guy, Wes Roth, did a kind of a summary of what was talked about. And I believe Matt Berman also did a summary of what was talked about. But what was interesting is I went to, the stream that I looked at, and am I sharing the right screen? No, I'm not. Let's make sure I'm looking at the right thing. And that's what I see now for that particular stream that I had watched. That's the one I watched. So this video is no longer available due to a copyright claim by Stanford University. I wonder if I can find it elsewhere. Eric Schmidt. I mean, it's probably like playing a game of whack-a-mole. So it looks like this one is up, hosted by Financial Wise. This looks like a shorter. Oh, that's definitely not it. So that looks like there's a few versions of. Okay, that's just a 1 minute thing. But anyway, you can probably look around and find a good summary. This one is Matt Berman, and he'll probably. It's mostly an interesting look at the video. But what was interesting was that it was taken down. Now, why was it taken down? I don't know. There were some people that said, oh, well, it was because of what he said about Google. But I don't think anything was all that surprising about what he said about Google. I mean, it's all pretty. I mean, I guess I mean, it was all pretty standard stuff. Nothing really surprising. It was interesting that he called out that one of the things that's holding Google back is the fact that it's a big company now. It's no longer the startup, because at a startup, it's kind of all hands on deck, like 24 hours a day, or okay, get some sleep, but you're on almost all the time. And that's been the case at every startup I've been at. I mean, that was the case at Datadog early on. But then Datadog grew, and all of a sudden work-life balance became important, and vacations became important. And as soon as that happens, I mean, you can't help but slow the company down a bit, because people that were working 18 hours a day are now only working 8 hours a day. And obviously, there's less stuff that happens in 8 hours a day versus now. Sure, people burn out, and that's why work-life balance has to happen. But at the beginning of a company, you're able to do things that you couldn't have done before. And so he talks a little bit about that being, and maybe I don't think that's controversial. I mean, that's just how companies work. Early companies, small companies are more nimble, and bigger companies are slower. It just, I mean, for if you have an idea at a small company, you can make it happen and have it online in hours or days. And at a big company, when I've worked at I've worked at a company called OpenText, which was 10,000 people or so, and I've worked at I worked at Datadog, and when I started, we were 30, and when I left, we were 5,000, and getting stuff done and published in a 5,000 person org is slower. I worked at Microsoft, but it was a much smaller Microsoft when I was there. I was there at the in 2000, and I think it was only about 40,000 people. I think it's a lot bigger now. And trying to get anything published or done. Even stuff that stayed internal just took a long time because a lot of vetting had to happen, a lot of approvals had to happen, even stuff that never saw the light of day. So yeah, it makes sense. But I think what was the biggest reason that the video had to be taken down were some of his comments about Ukraine and Russia. And I thought that was around strategy and tactics that could get one side in, to dominate versus another side. I think that was kind of maybe is the reason that he was asked to be taken down. But I haven't seen any other. I mean, there's lots of people have guesses about why it got taken down. But anyway, that was interesting. Another thing that was interesting was that am I looking at the right page? Yeah. There was this AI generated images that one side of the political system. We've got an election coming up in the U.S. and the Trump side created, or there were AI generated images claiming Swifties are supporting him. And he pushed that out, and there was all sorts of talk about, well, could that actually be illegal? There was a deep fake law that was passed pretty recently. Could that have impact on what was done? Why did it happen? There was talk from Trump saying that Kamala Harris AI'd the crowd sizes, but that's been shown to be false. And she really did have large crowd sizes. So anyway, it's interesting that AI generated images are showing up in this election. It's really the first time that there's always been photoshopped images in different elections in the past. Not always, but recently there have been, and I'm sure that there were photos doctored in the darkroom in elections before that. So, but we're at a point where doing this stuff is easier than it's ever been before. And so it's interesting that is in the election now. There was some talk, interesting post about Perplexity AI and ads. So Perplexity AI, one of the nice things about Perplexity AI and other systems like that, Perplexica, continue without supporting. Okay. Yeah. Is that, you get, rather than getting, when doing a search, you get in Google or Bing or any of these, you get a list of results that you can go and research yourself. And that's kind of good because now you get to do the research yourself and find the information from sources that you trust and come up with your own thoughts. But now Perplexity, I think Perplexity was really the first one to do this, introduced the idea of doing that search and then using a model to make sense of it all so that it was a little easier to get to, your opinion. But models sometimes make up stuff, and Perplexity tries to make sure that it's all based on stuff that it actually finds, but sometimes that doesn't work. I've used Perplexica locally that uses searching or search ng or whatever you want to say it. And that's, been a very good solution for me. But is it, I think I've mentioned in other videos that you should never trust the AI, whatever the AI spits out, never take that at face value and absolutely trust it, because sometimes it's wrong and it's up to you to look at the sources and verify that what it said really is accurate. There's been way too many cases of people taking what the AI says, putting it in a document, and sharing it with a judge. There was a trailer for a movie, Megalopolis, I think it was called, that included AI-generated quotes about previous movies that were all totally bogus. There's been there were quotes in a newspaper article just in the last week or two that got called out as being all AI generated. So yeah, but what was interesting about Perplexity is that you could get the results and you weren't bothered with ads on the page. Now Perplexity AI is saying, well, we got to do ads. We got to be making some money somewhere. So we're going to start enabling ads. I would assume they would probably like have ads and maybe because they also have uh, a version of it where you pay for, right? So yeah. So anyway, that was interesting. Let's see how we're doing on questions. Yesterday I had some folks leaving questions that I didn't actually see. So I just want to make sure that I'm seeing all the questions. Oh, I'm not seeing these questions. Okay. Let's yeah, those questions didn't show up for me. Interesting. Now that is not. Let's go over here and spit this out into a live chat and then a new pop-out chat. Okay. Okay, so sounds interesting. Karen, thank you for being my first person who is becoming a member in YouTube. I had enabled that pretty recently because somebody asked for it. And YouTube keeps pestering me. He's like, you got to turn this on. You started it, but you haven't actually turned it on. I had turned on Patreon because somebody else requested that, and I have a few people there. I don't want people to think that it's required, but it is always. I'm always super grateful anytime it happens. So thank you so much for that. Generated images is too good now. Yeah, we've seen. There's been a bunch of. Let's get to the right place. There's been a bunch of new image generators, AI image tools recently. There is Ideogram 2.0, which came out. I just loaded up the app on my phone. I played around with the website earlier, just played around with on my phone, and it seems like a little bit more enjoyable experience than using the website. And I was surprised at some of the tools that were available. Once you've generated that first image and you want to try to tweak it a bit, it's interesting how it will describe the image that it generated, and then you can tweak that based on text, which sometimes with Midjourney, it feels like it's a little too, it's still a little too, you can modify things, but it's still, you're not really sure what, I mean, I guess you're not really sure what you're going to get when you modify the text as well, but it's a different way of doing things, and it's just interesting. Let's see. Let's go over to, let's have this screen over here. Okay. And I'm going to resize this page. And that way I can always see the chat. That's my main thing. I want to see the chat. Imagen was the one I mentioned. Yeah, Imagen from Engelsman in Finland mentioned Imagen, which is a Google service. There was also Grok too, the service that's built into Twitter, and so that's pretty interesting. And that uses Flux, and so if I go into X, I seem to remember what is it? It's in. Isn't it one of the? Oh yeah, it's Grok, and then I can. I don't know. What do I do? I haven't really played with this one too much. Create an image of a llama playing records like a DJ in a cool nightclub. Everyone dancing. Let's see what it comes up with. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know what this is supposed to be saying. Stick. But that's uh, that's actually. I mean, uh, llamas don't have fingers like that. They have. Don't they have like what are they called? Hooves with like two digits. But anyway, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. So it was Grok 2 Mini, Beta, or Grok 2, or Fun Mode. So definitely worth playing around with. Some of the images that have come out have been definitely been scary that you're allowed to create, uh, but still it's pretty interesting. And then there's been a whole bunch of articles this week about AI in government. And there's been a lot of coverage about the AI bill in California, with some companies saying it's the worst thing ever, and some companies saying it's not that bad. It's better than it was. It sucks less. And some folks in government saying we need it. We absolutely need it to save us from the machines that are going to destroy us. And other politicians saying it's terrible. It's going to stifle innovation. So who knows who to believe? It is interesting, and we'll see if it actually passes in California. The thought is that it needs to happen in a state because depending on who gets elected, it may not happen at the nationwide level. But then again, does it need to happen? Um, Machines are not out to get us, despite what we've all learned from the documentary called Terminator, or at least some people seem to think it's a documentary. But then there was also a mayor in Wyoming that was running on the platform saying, I'm going to have an AI, I think OpenAI, do all the decisions for me, and that's going to be a whole lot better than relying on a human, because it's going to be able to understand all the laws and all that. And out of 11,000 people in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is the capital of Wyoming, so not a lot of people in Wyoming, but out of the 11,000, he got a whopping like 300 people to vote for him or vote for the AI. So thankfully, we do not have an AI running a city in Wyoming. Um, but that was the Guardian. I mean, the Guardian's a uh, you know, well-known British newspaper, and yeah, it was big news worldwide, even in the UK. Um, so that was interesting. And then more about the AI needs regulation. There was an interesting article in The Economist about AI needs regulation, but what kind, how much, and it talks about how different countries have been tackling this problem, and um, looking at how China has dealt with it, how the EU has dealt with it, and how the U.S. is thinking about dealing with it, how the Gulf states have dealt with it. So it's interesting, long article. Actually, it's not that long. It is something that requires I think it requires a subscription. There may or may not be ways to get past that, but that's up to you to figure out. um, but yeah, so AI regulation seems to be on a lot of people's minds. In the comment, Joe Burnett said, I don't see how they can regulate it to a broad extent since it's already here. Pandora's box has been opened. Yeah, and and closing it down or restricting what companies can do isn't really, as long as we're at a point where countries are competing against each other, and uh, as long as we're competing, then saying that the folks in your country cannot do certain things means other countries will and maybe get ahead, or are we all cooperating? And in which case, getting ahead is fine because when the next administration comes in, we're back to continuing to work on this stuff, and we can all just get along. I don't think we will all just get along. And then there was there was a bunch of articles this week about colleges and universities. It seemed like for a few years, all that colleges were talking about was that, Johnny in Econ 101 is going to use AI to generate his paper, his homework, and so AI is bad. Now at least we're getting to a point where maybe it's not so bad. That is frustrating that that's not working. Maybe it's not that it's bad, but professors and administrators of the university can start taking advantage of AI and doing good things with it, and being a little bit more creative in the classroom about how they use the technology. That said, I heard from somebody pretty recently, I think in the local school system, using AI to generate lesson plans, and taking it as is. Again, that goes back to my original point. Don't take whatever the AI generates as is without vetting it and making sure it's good. And so that applies to everything. But it was interesting to see it coming up that colleges, universities are starting to take advantage of it in interesting ways. The first article about it was talking about University of Alabama, which I thought was very interesting. But since then, I keep seeing other. I think that was like a waking up moment for lots of other colleges and universities, because now I'm seeing all sorts of articles about other colleges and universities that are doing this too, and making sure that their university is the one that's using AI in the right way for their students. Another comment: will be hard to police local models, especially how they can be tuned. Yeah, but I think some of the regulations goes to the foundation models, like the Llama 3 or Llama 3.1. There's a lot of fine tunes based on Llama 3.1 or on Llama 2 or on whatever else. But if you can regulate those foundation models, then you're kind of affecting all the rest as well, maybe. Or maybe that people get around whatever restriction there is. Finland is allowing young children to use Copilot as an assist to explain certain things. Great. There was some articles about more companies are limiting what, I think they specifically called out Copilot, but what AI models can do in their companies, and maybe using AI in general is not so good unless you're at a kind of enterprise level and you're able to restrict how people use the AI. A lot of companies want to make sure there's not too much information is being shared in public ways, because we've all learned that AI models, unless you've gone into the settings and turned things off, it will use the information it collects to make the model better. And so your secret information that you've shared with the model could become more public. Let's see. Oh yeah, there was this interesting. Oh, I stopped sharing, I guess. Let's try sharing again. Window. This one. Sure. Okay, so there was another one that was interesting. This Hugging Face released a tutorial or a set of tutorials about building your own AI-powered robot. I mentioned this to a few people, and they were all this was like the thing that more people were really excited about. It's like, oh, this is awesome. It's kind of like the AWS Racer, the car that would you would fine tune the model so that it could detect the sides of the track or the line in the middle of the track, and it's just really really cool. Maybe for a child older than my child who is 5, but not that much older, and it looks like it could be, or just any adult that wants to get into this. It looks really really cool, and I would love to play around with it a little bit. So that was interesting. There were a few new models that were announced this week. There was like Phi 3.5, some really small Phi 3.5 models, as well as Quen Math, and Jumbo 1.5. I think 535 is on Olama today. I don't think. Let's go to Olama models, and I think only five. I think 535 is still the latest one, but it's pretty interesting. It's 3.8 billion parameter. Um, It's been slow last few days for me. I don't know if it's just the way this machine is set up or is it slow for everyone. But anyway, 3.5. And if we take a look at the model information, it has a context length of 128K tokens. So that's pretty cool. Of course, any model in Olama defaults to being 2K, and you just go into, unless there's a parameters, no, there's no parameter set that override that. It is not a function calling or tool calling model using the new method, because I don't see anything here about function calling in the template. But still, it's pretty interesting. And yeah, so then there was also, what was the other ones I mentioned? The Quen Math. I don't think I've seen that. Quen. Let's do a search for all the. We can't see this. Did I stop sharing again? That's weird. Let's or am I sharing the wrong screen? Oh, I'm sharing the wrong one. Sorry. How about now? Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. So what I was doing, I don't know if we're able to see this now. Okay, we are. Okay, cool. So I went into the model information, and then down here I was able to see that it supports a maximum context length of 128K. But then there's no parameters defined, so it's not being overridden. So in order to override that, you would have to create your own model file. It's the easiest way is create a model file with a parameter set of num context 131 whatever 128K is. But anyway, this looks interesting. There's also, I was going to look to see if Quen was Quen Math, if anybody had uploaded Quen Math. I don't know if it's searching. Let's do a search for Quen. Huh. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. Quen. That's weird. That's, oh, wrong button, wrong button, wrong button. Refresh. Okay, now Quen. View all. Okay, I don't see anything about Quen. Quen Math. So it doesn't look like anybody's uploaded either. So that's interesting. But it looks like an interesting model. And then there was Jumbo, but that's a whole different architecture, I think. But that looked interesting as well. And then another interesting thing in the news, I think it's going to be one that's maybe not popular yet, but I think it's going to be a big deal soon. And that is the Z editor got Z AI using Anthropic. A lot of people seem to be pretty excited about this. I have used Z in the past. Uh, when it first got when they first made it available as like a beta product under, invite only, I had played around with it, and it was like amazingly fast. But at the time there were like four extensions, and you couldn't really do a whole lot. And VS Code was just so much nicer. I believe there is a extension that allows you to use Olama, or maybe it was just OpenAI API. Really? There wasn't? I could have sworn there was. Um, Maybe it's already built in. Oh, it's not available for Windows. Interesting. It is. I guess I have to. I guess apologize. I sometimes forget that there are people using other platforms. Because I always use I use it on a Mac, and it's great. But so what does it say on Windows? So not supported yet. We have limited developer bandwidth. Okay. New platforms, large undertaking. It was huge for Olama to get onto Windows. But community has developed a build of Zed on Windows. You can pilot the shelf with these instructions. We're not working on it. However, we welcome contributions from the community to improve Windows support. Okay, cool. All right. What else was there? There was a bunch of funding for all sorts of AI projects. There was an interesting article about all the funding that's gone on for some of the coding tools. But and we already talked about some of the new image gen. There was also this really great article in the New Yorker that just talks about the history of the transformer architecture, and how that made, the impact it's had on the world since. So how this intern, Aiden Gomez, who's now CEO of Cohere, how he came up with, or yeah, kind of the initial setup of the transformer model and how it's had an impact on the rest of the world. So interesting article to look at. I thought this was super interesting that it's there, and just go. The New Yorker is amazing. Well, the articles it produces, and it's a long article, so give it some time to go through it. But good stuff. Good stuff. And I think that's about all I got for the news of the week. Those are the things that resonated most with me. Definitely a different topic set than what you'll see from Matt Berman or Matt Wolf, but I guess that's healthy. Any other questions that people have about, well, anything? I'd love to answer any questions if you have them. Let me just go check something. Oh, nice. Nice. And oh, you have one, Karen. Thank you. What do you have? What do you have for me? What kind of question do you have? And anybody else, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. Luckily, I was able to get out of. So my daughter goes to a Waldorf school here on the island, and it's outdoors all the time. It's amazing. I mean, it rains here. In fact, it was pouring last night, but it was today is their kind of work party to get ready for the new year, and so there were people, like spreading mulch in different places, and tightening up the slide, and all the other work that needs weeding throughout the yard to make it more safe, and not that weeds are a problem, but make everything safe for all the kids, because there's it's a class of I don't know how many are in the preschool and kindergarten, but probably 30 or so. And so that work party is happening now. I think the work party is done, and now they're having lunch. I was able to get out of it because my shoulder is achy, so I can't lift up higher than this. Oops. My other arm I can lift up no problem, but this one I can't do that. I think it's a shoulder impingement. Doing all sorts of stretches to get that in good working order. I mean, I can do stuff like kayaking, no problem, but some things I just can't do, and so I kind of got out of doing work. That was good. What will my next Olama tutorial be about? That is a good question. Let me see what it is going to be about. Olama course. The next one. I think the next one is we're moving into a little bit more applied stuff, and so it's going to be what is a vector database. So that's coming out on Tuesday, and then I think for the Thursday one, it's probably going to be starting to play around with using there's a new stack that was announced just on Tuesday, I think it was, or Wednesday, called N8N, and so I might play around with some of that. I haven't done that one yet, but sometimes there was a point where I was like 3 weeks ahead, and then my lead time has shrunk, and now I'm back to actually building things like sometimes recording the video the morning that I actually release it. Thankfully, my editing skills are such that I can get it out pretty quickly. Although that last one that went out, which has done really well for me, I mean, it's definitely not MKBHD levels of success, but for me, it's the fastest. It's the video that has gotten the most views, the fastest of any video I've ever done. And I worked with an editor, a person that did the editing for me. I had to pay some money, but he's done that edit for me, and I think if I would have done it, there's some things that I would have done differently. I think I might have preferred, but to do the edit would have taken me like so much longer than he was able to do it. So let's see. Got some questions coming in. Working on a chatbot project build with Olama now. I am worried about performance and related stuff. Okay. Am I able to show this on screen? I can't seem to show it. I want to make it go away. Go, stop. Can't. Too many pop-ups are popping up, and I can't get rid of it. Okay. I want to host my own model so I can fine-tune based on type of queries or client's interest. Okay. So I don't think there's any concern about performance. There are definitely other tools for hosting models, but they don't seem to. Depends on the cards. I mean, they have less support for different cards, and you're giving up some of the convenience of Olama in order to gain. I don't know if you're actually gaining much. I haven't really tested it, but it doesn't seem like you're actually gaining much in using those other tools, other than more headaches. And it seemed, I mean, from some of the reviews I've seen, I'm not sure if those reviews were out of date based on what is currently in some of these VLLM or some others, but it seemed like it was harder to get multiple models to be running at the same time. I don't know if that's true because I've not dealt with it at all. I mean, I have a Mac, so I don't think they support Apple Silicon. Again, I haven't looked into it at all, but I feel like I don't see. I think the performance is not an issue on Olama. There's more being done to make it more performant and better in different ways. Like right now, it's the way it picks the GPU to use isn't really all that intelligent, and there's some new environment variables are in place to try to tweak that, but they haven't. I don't think they've actually taken effect. And because right now, if you have one GPU, and let's say you have a 8 billion parameter model in there, and it all fits on one GPU, and it spits out at, I don't know, 50 tokens per second randomly. I'm just picking a number. And you add a second GPU in there, it might slow it down to 40 tokens per second or 30 tokens per second. And you add another GPU, it's going to go slower again. So you might think, well, that's weird. Shouldn't more GPUs be faster? Yes, it is probably able to calculate things faster, but it's moving the information between the different GPUs that is relatively very, very slow. And so because there are just so many calculations that need to happen, that's not being done efficiently on Olama yet. I think that will change. I don't know when, but that will definitely have to change. Would be interested in learning about pruning and distillation if you have any plans to cover the area. Pruning. So I don't know what you mean by distillation, but pruning, and I don't know what you mean by pruning. So maybe you can clarify both of those words, what you are thinking, because there is an idea of pruning in Olama where if you start Olama, you do a pull of a model, but you're on a super slow connection. And then when Olama starts up next, such as when you next reboot your machine, or maybe you stop the service for some reason, then start the service. When that service has started, when the server is started, it will prune all the fragments of models that are on your system that are not complete. So it will remove all that stuff, remove that crap, because maybe you started a download and canceled it because you realize I don't want that, 100 billion gigabyte model for some reason, and so you canceled it, but it's still there, and so that cruft will be removed the next time. And so there is a environment variable that didn't work for a little bit, but I think it works again, called Olama no prune, which will just say, hey, when Olama serve starts up again, skip that pruning step. But I don't know if that's what you mean by pruning. Jay Elliott. Nice, thanks, Matt. Also, do you see an opportunity where LLMs can be used to generate videos by interfacing with image movie generating AI models to explain, demonstrate complicated math concepts? Yes, absolutely. I feel like I saw a tool just today. God, what's it called? An AI to so there is. Okay, let me go back to the previous page. And share the screen. I'll share my screen right here that I'm on. And then, where was it? I found this tool. There's an AI for this. Sign in. Okay. And it was something like, what was this? Math concepts. I feel like there was something that came in my email just today about building tutorials automatically for math. Of course, I don't know. I don't know where it is. I don't have my email on this machine, but I feel like I just saw something that was trying to do that. I was hoping it would be easy to find, but it's not. All right, where was I? Like the ones found on channels like 3 Blue, 1 Brown, etc. Yeah, in fact, isn't is the tool that he uses, I think it's called Manim, or is that somebody else uses? Manim is it's a Python-based framework for doing math visualizations. I didn't thumbs up. Um, and there's been a few others around doing interesting visualizations. And I would imagine, since it's a application or a framework, a library, I would imagine you could use an AI model to generate that visualization somewhat easily, I think. Easily, I don't know. Easy is a hard word to say. Okay, 535. When asked about GraphRag, as of my knowledge, cutoff date in early 2023. I feel like you asked something else, but it says message retracted. So I don't see it. But yeah, the problem with any of these models is that it takes so long to train the model, to do that initial training. The training is one of the very time-consuming processes, and so they only have data up until a year ago or 2 years ago, and that's where RAG comes in, or fine-tuning, because the fine-tuning can be done much more quickly, and you can add additional newer information into a model using those processes. Do you think Olama will become closed source in the future? No, absolutely not. I can say, I mean, I'm no longer in the Olama team, so I can't say for 100%. I'm not 100% sure, but I would say it would be very. I can't see a situation where that would come up where they would switch it to closed source. Open source is so important to the team. And they are so dedicated to that idea. That now, that said, maybe right now, the runner, the Olama, the thing that lets you run the models is open source, but the website and the registry for the models is closed source. And so there'll probably be more functionality added to that piece, but all the stuff that's in Olama today will remain being open source for forever, and they will continually add more stuff to the open source project. So I don't see that going away ever. They are very, it's very important to them. I'm inferring that it might not be a big helper in today's coding problems. I think it's still, I mean, a lot of, maybe the specific technique is newer than 2023. GraphRag's not newer than 2023. I mean, we've had GraphRag. I mean, there's the Microsoft project that came out pretty recently that people got super excited about. But there have been other implementations of the technology I mean, I remember seeing it in mid to late 2023. But that's still earlier than probably the cutoff for some of these models. But so that is the specific implementation, but everything about writing an application using C or C# or Rust or JavaScript or TypeScript or Python or probably even Mojo, is probably understood by the model today, and so could be perfectly good for coding problems. It just doesn't. It might not know the details of some new project that started in the last few months. Again, not that GraphRag is in the last few months. It's like a year old, but still. Okay. There was another question. How Meta is gaining from releasing Olama open source? Meta is not gaining. It has nothing to do with Meta. Olama is. Are you saying llama or Olama? Olama is the runner that the Olama team, formerly known as the Infra team, has created. It's a team of about 8 people, 9 people, building a runner for Mac, Linux, and Windows. Llama, without the O, Llama was like the original thing that it was the original model that really kind of started the current excitement about local models. Okay, you're talking about Llama. Okay. Well, Llama, I mean, Llama 3 won't become closed source. Is there a chance that Llama 4 or Llama 5 would be closed source? Maybe, but I don't. I mean, Mistral is doing that with, they had an open source model and then they have a closed source model that came out later, but they don't have a way of making money outside of, I mean, that's all they do is these models. So they need a way of coming up of generating some revenue, and they need to do that with a closed model. Whereas Meta, like you probably, I mean, you've probably used their main product, and that's the main way they make money is Facebook. And Facebook is enormous, and they are using models to make Facebook better and how it operates and how it works with, discovering stories, discovering friends or whatever it is, all the things that Facebook does, and they want that model to be as good as possible. So yeah, that makes sense that they would open source that model so that all of us can help the development of making Facebook better, because it all goes back into Facebook. So I don't see the benefit to Meta to make a new model that is closed source. It would be against their interests. Unless unless there is a change, unless there is a AI regulation bill that passes in California that restricts what they can do, which requires them to expose information to, or potentially get sued over the use of an open source model in the future. There could be something about that regulation that would force Meta's hand and close source a model. I would imagine that. This is based on no actual real information that says that will happen. I would just imagine that is a potential future. Okay, pruning, removing layers of a model. Every time I've heard any mention of removing anything from a model, it seems like that is very, very, very hard and computationally very, very, very expensive compared to fine tuning. Fine tuning is easy; anybody can do it. But removing stuff from the model, removing knowledge from, I mean, that's because it's not like it's not like a database. I can do a search for, all mentions of, I mean, this has come up with GDPR. In Europe, you have a law that says any user, any person can request that their, no, I didn't do that. I'm going to I don't know. Any service that knows about a human being, a European citizen, they can request their information to be removed from the database. Sometimes a person's name and information finds their way into a model. How do you remove that person's name? I don't know if that's really doable. I mean, without a lot of time required to do that. So that is something, I mean, because I don't know. Yeah, and I'm not sure. One thing about GDPR, I think that's the name of it. Does that apply to me? Can I request it? Because I mean, it sounds like I'm American based on my accent. I live in America, but I was born in England. I have a British passport. I have a U.S. passport as well, but I have a British passport, and that's how I lived in I lived in Amsterdam for 10 years without a visa because I was EU until Brexit and all. Okay, wait, no, Brexit. And so I'm no longer in the EU. So that EU rules no longer apply to me. But let's say I was, instead of being born in the UK, I was born in the Netherlands or France or somewhere else, even though I've lived almost all my life in the US. Would GDPR apply to me? I never knew that. I don't know. Anyway, let's see. What else? What other questions we got? Ooh, we're going on for a good amount of time. Okay, maybe it's just I will be doing it for the first time and don't have any idea of the outcome. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. I don't. I mean, I don't know what I don't know. I sometimes just make stuff up. I'm like a model. I just make stuff up. I don't know when I don't know. I try not to make stuff up. I try to actually say, if I don't know something, unless we're talking about an opinion, I will say, I don't know. I'm pretty quick to say I'm an idiot about certain things and I don't know about stuff. Pruning. Okay, we talked about pruning. Concern arise when I see a single query fill my 4 to 8 gigabytes of RAM for a single query. So I imagine 100 queries makes me worry. Ah, yes. If you don't have a GPU with a lot, I mean, if you don't have a GPU with enough memory and you only have 8 gigs of VRAM in your GPU, and you have Llama 318, 8 billion parameters, I don't know if you'll be able to fit a second copy of the model, and so you still can potentially respond to 1 or 2 queries at a time, maybe 3. I'm not sure, but so you would get some performance there, but you're kind of limited. You need to have more. You would have to have more powerful GPUs. There are other bigger GPUs with up to 24 gigs in consumer cards, as well as more enterprisey cards that have up to 80 gigs or so on the A100s. And maybe if you have an idea for a product that can actually be monetized and AI is a core part of it, then you can justify the cost of getting the A100 with 80 gigs or H100 or whatever other card, or maybe multiple cards to help increase throughput for more users. But if you're stuck with just one GPU, that's hard. I mean, this is a game that requires fast GPUs, and if you don't have it, life will suck. And there's no way around that yet. There are definitely tools that people that are doing research about how to increase performance at the CPU for CPUs only rather than GPU, but that's not something that Olama's in. I don't know who is doing that well. Let's see what we got now. Thank you. Greetings from John Bradley. Finally caught a live one. Yes, hey. I'm here. I'm live. I'm answering your specific question, proving that we're live. Very exciting. What is up with your picture? I see this like a tiny little picture for everybody, so you all kind of look the same. Okay, and now I've got this pop-up up, and I can't get rid of it. Okay, I wonder if one should offer an autonomous temperature setting. For example, the temperature would be lower when the user requests code evaluation and higher when the user requests to write a story. I think that would definitely be something that you could offer in whatever application you've written as your front end for, or maybe it's something that any of the other front ends should be able to do. Have something that recognizes the type of question you're asking, and maybe if it's a coding question, then it's going to be sent to one of the coding specific models, or if it's a question about something else, send it to the model that is most able to answer that question. Some people kind of think of mixture of experts being that thing. It's different experts that are able to respond to questions that are on different topics, but mixture of experts works differently. It's not looking at the entire concept or the entire question. It's looking at a per word basis and for each token, handing it off to the expert most able to answer which is the most probable next word in the answer. But it could be interesting to come up with a tool that sends questions to the right model or sends questions with the right, figuring out what is the parameter matrix for different types of questions that you like. Kind of like on some synthesizers, you have that grid of settings, and it might be a grid of like 8 by 2, and on the top one it's got this one particular sound, and the next one it's got another sound, next box had another sound, have all these 8 different sounds, and as you move the dot through these different boxes, the sound kind of changes, the output changes, and it kind of skews in interesting ways and create interesting sounds that way. Thanks for the explanation. Love this point of view. Yes, we have an EU possible to remove info. Yep. Olama 3.5, 405 billion is still not available in the Netherlands, for example. Interesting. I guess learning along the way is only option. Yeah, totally. Totally. Thank you for the broader response. Cool. All right. Well, I thought I was done like 39 minutes into this podcast, or not podcast, but stream. And here we are, an hour and 10 minutes, roughly, hour and 8 minutes. And we're still going. I was thinking that my wife is probably coming home soon, so I might hear that garage door open. It's like, I gotta go, but I don't have to go yet. Any other questions that people have? I can actually. Oh, I'm on Top Chat. Oh, there were other questions. Sometimes it's frustrating that the YouTube chat window that shows up, there is a top chat, but then there's also live chat. And top chat somehow like filters out some messages, and so I miss those. And then live chat shows me everything. So let's see if there's anything else I missed in here. I think I got everything. Trump supporting Elon Musk. Yeah. So Jay Elliott from 30 minutes ago. With ultimate say on Twitter X, content releases advanced and uncensored image generation tool in run up to election. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's lots of problems with X now. It's definitely changed from this platform that was pretty open to everybody's opinion, and you could, unless you did something really bad, unless you did something very, shared something very illegal, you pretty much anybody was saying anything they wanted on Twitter, and then it changed hands, and a lot of folks that were, had a proven record of sharing stuff they really shouldn't have shared because it's just totally bogus information, they got added back to the platform, and a lot of other voices that hadn't done anything wrong other than supporting the wrong side get removed from the system, which never happened before, for no reason. So that was interesting. And then, but one of the things that has happened is that you cannot block. I think I can't block certain users. So Elon's tweets keep popping up. I can't get rid of them. I'm forced to see them if I want to use X at all, which is frustrating because some of the stuff that nutcase says are just ridiculous. But one of the things that he shared, like about so there was a story of a MAGA kind of Republican going to a or like a convention where there were I think Seven of Nine, the person who plays Seven of Nine, Jerry Ryan, I think it is, on stage, and then I believe it was her that goes into here's why I vote Democrat and not Republican, so then there was this like, well, this is a Star Wars thing. You shouldn't be getting into politics. Like of all the movies and Star Wars and Star Trek, of all the movies and series that you can get into, you've gotten into the one that is most political because I mean they've made um, it's obvious a very political thing, and oh, no, and so they're talking about this party that is aligns with what is said in about the 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 rebels and most of Star Trek, and they got upset about it. But anyway, Elon shared this um, thing about how you support the Star Trek and you support the rebels against the Empire, and then you don't vote for Trump. It's like, well, did you forget? Did you miss what you just read? Ah, it was weird. Sorry. Podcast when? Podcast when? Podcast when? Please provide your view on 1.5-bit quantization. 1.5? I don't know if you can have a half a bit. Can you have a half a bit? I don't know what that would look like. I don't see how that could happen. I mean, 1-bit quantization? Can you? But I mean, it's magic that 2-bit works, and it's magic that 2-bit is often pretty good. I mean, that's just pure magic. How could you fit? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 values for turning this 32-bit value number into one of 4 items. 1.5-bit uses -1, 0, and 1. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that like so with 4-bit, it's kind of at this beautiful thing where it's as you go to smaller sizes, we're having to deal with smaller numbers, and so that should be faster, but we're having to deal with larger maps that help the model figure out how to convert this small number into a bigger number, um, and so that slows things down. But as we get into bigger numbers, well, the model slows down because we're dealing with bigger numbers, but we're dealing with smaller maps of how do these 16-bit numbers, how did that map into the larger 32-bit number? So it's 4-bit seems to be that sweet spot where it's faster because the number is getting small, and it's still fast because that map that converts isn't big enough to make things slower. Benefit is that all multiplications become additions. That's pretty cool. I don't know. I know nothing. GPUs become less relevant than the CPU. Interesting. I seem to remember there was a podcast that I listened to about I think it must have been on the changelog. So changelog is a podcast I've listened to for forever, since the beginning of the changelog. In fact, one of the like episode 4 or 5, they actually called me out like, oh, Technopangelist had this cool project that whatever I did, I can't remember what I did, but like in the first few episodes. But that was my last mention on that. I mean, they've got hundreds and hundreds of episodes. But they have one of their podcasts is AI focused, and they always have some interesting things on there. I seem to remember about a year ago there was discussion about a company that was trying to make the models that we're using today faster on CPU only, but they hadn't gotten very far, and we're still working through it. I don't know if that's what they were working on, but Karen 963, what? Oh, any plans for starting podcast? No. Should I? What would the? I don't know. I'm amazed that something like this works. I've been on for an hour and 15 minutes. There are 10 people here. And there have been like people coming in and out, and sometimes it's pegged up as high as 15, 16 people. Some of the other ones I've done that have also gone into the hour, I've had like 50, 60 people on the whole time. I'm amazed that that works. I would I I would never be one of you the folks in the audience here because I've never watched a stream. What's the longest stream I've watched? I never watched streams. So I find, in fact, podcasts, there's very few podcasts. And once they go past 30 minutes, it's like they didn't plan well. How is this taking 30 longer than 30 minutes? I can't sit and listen to a lot of podcasts. There's a few exceptions. There are people here. Yeah. Who'd have thunk? I'm not just talking to you. But yeah, I mean, there's a few exceptions. There are some podcasts I listen to that are longer, but there's some that I see pop up, like what's that? Oh God, what's the guy who's kind of been pushing AG1 because he makes a lot of money from it rather than being useful? Huberman. There's oh God, that guy who's so I can't listen to because so annoying. I just every now and then it comes up. It's like I'll try to listen to it for a bit and just goes on and on. It's like doesn't it could cut out so much and just be valuable. He's always wearing like a black suit. Lex Friedman. Oh my God, I can't stand listening to that guy just drone on and on and on. But then I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm droning on and on, and it's just me. I mean, I'm answering your questions in the chat, but it's just me. I don't know. I don't know. I am not the. I'm definitely not the target audience for this thing. Longer the better. Oh my goodness. I can't listen to a podcast while doing anything else because I will pay too much attention to what I'm hearing. I can only do music when and not music that I like. So the music that I occasionally will listen to is actually from I think it's called Endel, and there was like Focus. There was another one that was called like Focus Brain or Brain Focus. I don't know. Some of these different apps that will generate music kind of on the fly, and I've enjoyed using those. But then I forget about them and I don't use them for a long time. So I can't do it. I can't. I mean, I can't. I don't know. Maybe I need practice, but I can't do it. Any other questions that are relevant to what we actually talk about? But somebody else asked about doing a podcast. Oh, repetitive tasks get boring, so listening to something helps. I don't do any. I've never had a job where I've had like repetitive tasks. I guess maybe that's the difference. I've never been in that role. All of my roles, if I go back, so right now I don't work for anyone. I make YouTube videos. That's my entire job. Only because I was lucky enough to be at a startup that went big, and I've got some runway before I need to make this turn into something. But before this, I worked for Olama, and we were doing new things. We're trying to create this new product. And before Olama, I worked for Datadog for 8 years, and I was the first evangelist there. And I started off the community team, started up the documentation team, started up the training team, started all those things at Datadog. And so it was always new things. I never had a moment where I was not doing new things. And before that, I worked at OpenText, and I was doing okay. There, I had stuff that was repetitive, um, but I was actually like standing in front of a class because I was a trainer for a product called RightFacts, which was deathly dull. But I was traveling. I mean, I would do a class in Melbourne one week, and then Sydney the following week, and then Perth the following week. Go home for a few hours and go to do a class in Dubai for a week, and then come home for a few hours and go to Buenos Aires for a week, and then come home for a few hours and go to Oslo for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then come home for a few hours, go to Singapore for 2 weeks, or and so it was always there was always change there. Before that, I worked at Microsoft, and at Microsoft, I was also always doing new things, trying to do new things with all the products that were part of this, to encourage state and local government in Washington State and Oregon and Idaho and Alaska to renew the enterprise agreement. And so always kind of thinking of new ways to use the product that were in their licensed products. And before that, before Microsoft, what was before Microsoft? Before Microsoft, I worked at a company called NetObjects, but that didn't last long. That only lasted for 6 or 7 months before the company folded. But before that, what was before NetObjects? Then it was Progressive Strategies, and that was horrible. I mean, we're already going back to when was that Progressive? I was at Progressive from 90. That's 90. That was right after college. So 92 to 97, 98, somewhere on there. And that's before streaming. That was, I mean, I might have had my Rio CD player that played MP3s off of the CD player, or maybe actually no, the Rio that I had was like a small unit that actually played all the music off of that was a was something I got at Microsoft for being a Microsoft employee. So uh, I yeah, I think get a better job. Not that I don't know. I don't know. I think that I've never had a job that I haven't been excited to get out of bed to go to. I've always had jobs where I'm so excited about the next thing I get to do at this job. I've I've often I often see movies about people that hate their job, that do the same thing every day, pushing paper or whatever it is, and they just hate that job, and they come home exhausted. I mean, I'm definitely exhausted when I finish, but I've never had the job where I hate what I do. I've always loved everything I do, but I've I've definitely never I never had a goal that I was trying to achieve. I've never had 5 year goal. I just always kind of go to the next thing that looks like it's going to be a fun job, and when it's stopped being fun, leave and go find another fun job. And I got so lucky that one of those fun jobs was at a tiny startup that had no chance of going anywhere, and then it went somewhere and it went public, and there I was in middle of Times Square seeing the Datadog logo on all the signs in Times Square. And this company that had no chance of going anywhere went somewhere and changed my life. Before that, I was thinking that my the only thing that would help me get to a point where I could actually retire was not that this is why, but the fact that I married somebody who was a lot more frugal meant that I had a chance of retiring at some point. But then life changed. Reminds me of Severance TV show. They liked? I haven't watched that. I need to watch that because they like their job. I mean, they were like the idea is that they are in their job, and then when they get home, they forget the job existed, and they only know about home. And when they go to work, they only know about the job, and they don't know anything about life at home. Is that? I think that's the gist of it. Um, all right. Well, today's exciting. We are we bought a tent yesterday. Bought a tent, what is it called? A North Face Wawona 6 tent, 6-person tent. With the idea that we're actually going to take the family go camping a bunch. Because I used to go camping as a child. In Boy Scouts, we do camp outs every 3 or 4 weeks. Um, where I grew up in Miami, and so I'm excited to show my daughter the idea of camping. Not quite the camping we did, because we would get in a canoe and canoe for several hours to get to a place like on the west coast of Florida, or canoe down the Current River in Missouri for a week, or take a boat out to one of the barrier islands in Boothbay Harbor, Maine, or Grand Canyon. We did amazing trips, but yeah, I want to. This time around, we're probably going to do a lot of car camping, but set up a tent from the car, or just we're not hiking in and we're not canoeing in. Okay, we got to stop this. I'm at 126 and I'm just dribbling on and on and on, and somehow people are, oh, because you're doing repetitive tasks and not really paying attention. Maybe I should stop. Unless there's any other questions, I'm going to stop and I'm going to go away. How we doing? Okay. Well, I think it's not because you're asking questions, because I'm on live chat. I'm pretty sure there's nothing. I'm checking to make sure that I really am seeing the full live chat. Yep, I am. Okay. We're going to find the end button now, the stop button. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. This has been, will there be a new video in the Olama course about function calling or tools and agent using Olama? I don't know. I mean, I feel like there should be another one on function calling. But the problem is that there are two methods for function calling. One that is the new way, and one that is there's the old way. The old way is not whatever documentation existed before has been removed, and so that old way only exists if you kind of discover it yourself. It's all about the new way. The new way is nowhere near as good as the old way. It's so frustrating that the new way, it's using fine-tuned models, fine-tuned for function calling, and compared to the success rate that you have with the old way, it's just kind of garbage compared to what we had before. So and tool calling, knowing about a whole bunch of tools and being able to decide on the right tool to use for the next part of what you need to do, it was just so much better before. Hopefully, as it gets better, I'll be able to do more about function calling. But there are 3 videos about function calling that exist, and 2 that talk about purely about the old way of doing things, because Olama added function calling and tool calling. I feel like it was in August or September of last year. So just like 8 weeks into the start of Olama, that had function calling and tool calling. I mean, originally it was just function calling, but then people like to call it tool calling instead. And some people say, oh, well, they're completely different. No, they're not. They're exactly the same. It's just about outputting JSON. And oh my God, so many folks who are OpenAI fanboys, basically, OpenAI fans that just love the way OpenAI does things. And even if somebody else does exactly the same, it's not the same because it's not OpenAI. But basically, Olama did something that was more reliable than what OpenAI had, and yet people really hated it. I don't know why. So I feel like there should be it's hard because even though there are specific facts that are like known to be true, it's hard to, because I want the course to be less opinionated, and just the facts. And that's a topic that is hard to say just the facts without people interpreting it as an opinion. Um, it needs to be done, but yeah. And then agent use, I haven't found a good framework for agent use. There's some existing frameworks that are very popular that are garbage. There's that opinion in there, but and maybe it's not. Maybe I should just get past that and just show you here's how to use that framework. But if I know something is bad, it's hard for me to say here's how to use this thing because it's potentially amazing when I know in my heart that it's terrible. But like Crew AI, it's just not great. Um, but it's popular. It's getting some money for some funding, so maybe soon it will become something amazing. But I'm not a fan of it. Uh, you're a fan of the course. You love the course because it's not less opinionated. Oh my goodness. So maybe but I mean, I can go on for a while talking about how I hate things. No, that's not really productive. So I don't know. I don't know. Yes, I need to do that. I also so let me tell you some of the things that are coming up in the course. I've got here's basically the titles, kind of the titles that go to the course. Um, there's the starting to use other front ends. So looking at environment variables that are needed, how to call Olama from Docker, using remote Olama. So all those kind of topics in that one video about generally about front ends. And then a kind of a short version of what is quantization. So what does Q4 mean? Q4K, and what's the SM, and L actually mean? How is it? I mean, yeah, small, medium, large, but how does that actually different? Then what's next in the what is RAG? I mentioned that I was going to be doing the what is a vector database. So what is RAG? How does web search work with models? What are agents? So there is a video about what are agents without getting into detail about a little bit of detail about how to implement them, but just without a framework. What is embedding? What is a vector database? What are the different types of models? So talking about foundational versus multimodal, instruct versus text, some of the other filters on the Hugging Face website. I have one listed as benchmarks are useless, but I kind of spray that into, I kind of mentioned how that is true in the finding models in the library. So I don't know if that's actually all that needed. I should probably remove that from my list. What are hallucinations and why do hallucinations happen? What is context window? How does the context window work? How does content get taken away from out of the context window? And then one on prompting strategies. So zero shot versus few shot versus chain of thought versus all the different strategies for prompting. And then in the more advanced section, so I thought of having 3 playlists. One that is basically all you need to know to use Olama. Just use Olama. And then kind of in the advanced stuff, comparing models. And so that basically there would be one video for each model and just going through kind of a rubric, kind of like what Matt Berman has done with, where he goes through his favorite questions to ask. So comparing models, cleaning up afterwards. So uninstalling the model, uninstalling Olama, removing models, prune. What's the prune thing all about? Another one about creating models. Another one about importing models. Although I've kind of done a little bit of that, but going into more detail. The model file in more depth. Every now and then I show the model file, but people don't really understand what the model file is all about. The Olama file structure, so going into detail about and again, some of these have already been covered in my older videos, but the older videos often went into, I had talked about a topic and then there were 15 tangents and I could never remember which video talked about any one thing. So really having a video that is just about the file structure, just about one that's actually probably going to be more like 3 or 4 about fine tuning. So fine tuning using, was it MXL, fine tuning using axolotl, fine tuning using was it Llama Factory, I think it is, or some of the other fine-tuning tools that are out there. Quantization in more depth. How much memory do you actually need for different types of things, for the model itself, as well as for the context size? How does, context size affect things? What is tokens and tokenization? What is a transformer? So kind of, sort of basic, but most people don't need to know this stuff. And what is alignment? What does that word mean? And then there's an Olama applied, which is really just how do we use all the tools that people like to use. So using Olama with Docker. Actually, I think I might have, didn't I already do that one? No, I did that in kind of the Thursday videos, not part of the course. And so I'm not sure what that will need to be, but a look at the Olama API, a look at the Olama Python SDK and the JavaScript SDK, function calling, but I'm kind of leaving that till much later and when things kind of settle and get better. The OpenAI compatible API, and then using OpenWebUI, not a review, just here's how to use, and that might actually have to be several videos to look at different functionality within OpenWebUI, and doing the same thing for Misty and for Page Assist and for GoLama and for other UIs that pop up. Enchantment might be one of those. There's some UIs that are only on Windows. I don't have a Windows machine, so that will have to wait until later. And when I have, I don't want to just use Paperspace, which is what I usually use. And then building, and so this is another one that would be a few videos, building with LangChain, building with Llama Index, building with LangGraph, building with, those types of larger frameworks. Using Olama with VS Code. And so that's actually a number of other videos as well, like Twinny and Continue and some of the other plugins, using Olama with Zed, using Olama with Obsidian. And I mentioned the models. Actually, that was one of the other playlists, is just a video for each model. So that's the course. As you can see, there's a lot of videos. There's probably and some of that will change as we go through it, but I think I'm basically creating this course. If I will have to accelerate it at some point, because if I do it at the current, one video each week, it's going to take me a year and a half. So I think there's something like 80 videos that are currently like, here are the specific not all of them are like outlined out or even scripted, but I do have titles and kind of the gist of what's in each one. That was a long answer. All right. We're now at an hour and 40 minutes. That person who said nobody's going to watch news for an hour every day. And then I think, well, the summary, it's going to be quick. And here we are. I mean, I guess I haven't talked about news in an hour, but we're still going. All right. I got to go. Because, it's 1:30. How is it? Hold on. Did they already come in? No, they're not here. Must be fun cleaning up gravel or whatever it is at the playground. I feel like I'm in the classic scene, right at the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and the movie's over. The credits have all gone past. We've seen all the, the principal getting onto the bus and having to sit next to the young kids. And then the movie's done, and then we see Matt Broderick, a much younger Matt Broderick, coming out of the bathroom. He's like, "You're still here. Go home. It's over. The movie's over. Go home." I feel like we're at that point. Okay, I'm going away. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks. This is so much fun. I love doing this. I love having this video that gets done. It's just fun. So yeah, I'm gonna find that stop button now. Unless there's any other questions. Last chance, last chance. 3, 2, 1. I said 3, 2, 1, but I'm okay. I'm going. Goodbye. Thanks so much. Bye. Yep. Stop. I press stop.